Hello and welcome to the show. I am here today taking a look at the console version of Assetto Corsa. A big thank you to the developers for sending me this game and allowing me to play it a couple of days early. For this particular video, I'm going to be tackling the fearsome Nurburgring with the Lotus 98T. So, one of the, if not the most difficult race circuits there is in a crazily fast classic Formula 1 car. There are many millions of things that can possibly go wrong here. While I haven't got a sort of particular lap time in mind that I'm aiming for, I'm going to try and go as quick as I can without binning it in a wall. If we can keep it out of the Armco, I will be relatively happy, because this is one hell of a vehicle to try and drive quickly at this circuit. Now, my history when it comes to Nurburgring, I never used to be a massive fan. Whatever game it might be in that I was playing, not that I didn't appreciate the track, appreciate the challenge. It was more that I just hadn't learnt the circuit. It is such a long track, takes a very long time to learn, and I was just never that comfortable with it, and thus didn't particularly enjoy driving around it. Now that all changed with Forza 5. I did a series hot lapping cars around the Nürburgring, put in the time, plenty of hours to learn to drive this track competently, and now in general I'm much more comfortable with taking cars around here. Having said all of that, I am still absolutely terrified of this Lotus here because, yeah, it is seriously tough. There are so many little things that can go wrong around a track like this that, yeah, it's a real challenge, and it's a challenge unlike in any other game. Assetto Corsa is a full-on simulator. Let's face it, the Lotus 98T would not be an easy car to drive quickly. To try and get this car even vaguely close to its limits would not be easy at a track as demanding as this, and it does a very good job of that. The physics is, well, if you've played the PC version of this game, the physics are basically the same. So it is a very solid handling model, and if you whack off all of the assists, incredibly demanding. It doesn't have to be brutally difficult if you don't want it to be. There are, of course, options for traction control, stability control, ABS, and racing line if you don't happen to know your way around the Nürburgring. They are all there, and they are, they're there to help you if you're not as experienced with racing games and learn how to drive some of these cars, etc. Take them all off, and you get what I call the full terrifying Lotus experience, and yeah, it is a real challenge. But because it is such a challenge, the sense of reward when you get that good lap, whether it be around the Nürburgring or whatever circuit it might be that you are tackling, when things go right, when you get a good run through a race, get these clean laps, is really unmatched by other console racing games. This is, we're just dealing with hot lapping here at the moment, just me on my own trying to go quickly around the Nürburgring. We're not got to worry about other cars and so on, but simply completing these laps, getting fast laps, feels like a fantastic accomplishment. And to me, it's worth trying to wrestle this car around a circuit. Now, speaking of physics, this very much being a simulator, comes one of the big questions: how does it work with a controller? Now, I am currently playing this with a controller. I can tell you I would personally rather be playing with a wheel. The real difficulty with a simulator is some of these cars have got up to 900 degrees of steering lock. This Lotus won't do, but some of them do. And how you map that to an analog stick, after all, real cars don't drive with an analog stick. Assetto Corsa does a good job. I faffed about with the settings for a little while, found one that worked, and it is very much drivable, but it is easier to be precise with a steering wheel. It is just much easier to do those fine movements and fine precision with a steering wheel. It is possible with a controller. You are going to need a full concentration with a controller to I say that, I do. Now, I will put in the description the settings that I used for the controller here. Now, personal preference, you may find different settings work well, and so on, and I may well experiment with more over the coming weeks and so on. It works. It's perfectly drivable. You've just got to be very, very precise, very, very smooth, and you will see that I am perhaps not being quite as aggressive as you might expect me to be, but this is just me. No, don't you bloody dare. My TV is now playing funny buggers. Stupid bloody TV. My TV chose, for whatever reason, my TV has a stupid automatic turn off that I cannot disable after so long of me not pressing a button on the actual TV remote. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. And it chose that moment while I'm on a half-decent lap to activate. Anyway, completely lost my trail. Screw you, TV. I went from one TV that used to just randomly turn itself off for a couple of seconds to now one that wants to turn itself off through a stupid auto timer. Anyway, yes, the many millions of things that can go wrong on a lap around here. It's just been completely thrown. My brain was dealing with the car all right and talking all right, and now it's just added one to it. Let's get on to the nice straight, the one bit of Nurburgring where I can relax. Here we go. Right, yes, car difficulties. Turbos. The turbos on the Lotus, of course, are rather brutal. Now, down this straight, you can see just how bumpy the Nurburgring is. I praised Colin McRae Dirt, the first Dirt game. I only played it for the first time quite recently. I praised how well that dealt with, the big racing, the big off-road trucks and the rally cars dealt with kind of crashing around the bumps. You really got a sense of impact as the cars sort of hit landings and so on. And you really get a sense of just how bumpy some of these circuits are. Especially, again, we're talking especially with a Formula 1 car like this, you really do see and feel the bumps in these cars. And then when you've got a lot of power trying to escape the back of the car, that can suddenly be quite snappy because, the turbos have suddenly decided to go, oh yes, let's dump all of that boost, or put all of that boost in, and there's so much power trying to escape immediately. You catch a bump wrong, you're going to spin the car. You have a wheel on the curb as you try to put the power down, you're probably going to spin a car. And because there is so much speed, you're not really going slow in this car at any point around the lap. You have big accidents with there isn't really a small accident with a classic Formula 1 car. So you've got to be so very careful. It's not just bumps, curbs, for example. That's actually a very, very good example. You ride up across the curb and you're trying to, still make up time. Nürburgring is particularly bad for these large, vicious curves. You ride up across that curb and, you're going to cause problems for the car. You've got to manage all of these different things. Braking, you can't be doing with braking on a curb. I've done it a couple of times by accident. I've been just a little too far out of position. You go to get on the brakes, you've got one wheel ends up on the curb, things can go wrong. Braking in a straight line is hugely important on here, more so than in certainly any other console racing game that I have played. You are much better off, even if you're a little bit out of position in a braking zone, you are so much better off to just be out of position and stay in a straight line when you are on those brakes. You're trying to correct stuff, you're not going to get away with it. A lot of games, you get that little bit of leeway, that little bit of margin to work with. You can get away with stuff. On here, again, when you take all the assists off, you don't. You just simply can't. You will, again, the speeds you're going, you will have an accident. And I love the challenge. It might not be for everyone, but I really, really like that challenge. It's different to everything else out there. Again, as I said, if you don't want quite that level of brutality, there are plenty of options to turn it back a little bit. Oh, don't get too wide through there. There's a fun corner when you get it right, but a terrifying corner when you've got a little bit wrong. The other thing that's a big important thing when it comes to driving on here that I haven't really noticed as an important thing, again, elsewhere, blipping the throttle as you change down gear. Now, when it comes to actual real racing, you will hear drivers using heel and toe braking. Now, the reason why you do that is so you can blip the throttle as you downshift. And again, if you turn the option, if you turn the auto blip assist off, it is something that is fundamentally important with cars of this speed. You might get away with it in other vehicles, but a car like this, if you aren't flipping the throttle as you change down gears, it all gets very unsettled. Now, naturally, I'm used to doing this. The way that I've driven with manual and clutch on Forza 6, I just do it automatically. It doesn't really make a difference on Forza 6, but it's just is automatic to me. It makes a huge difference on here. You don't do it, the car is horrendously unsettled in a braking zone. Again, leading to a relatively easy spin or a trip into the barriers somewhere. And it can only be, you might only miss one gear change or something. It can be enough to upset the car. You really have got to make sure that you get things right. And even sort of little bumps out of that bloody hairpin before the carousel, I really struggle putting the power down and making sure that I get it right. We have got around the carousel neatly though. I'm normally quite bad for going far too much speed on the way into the carousel and then being launched out of the top of it halfway around. So yeah, having made it through there, I am happy. We see what the curbs do and what the crests do up here. I'm going to be a little cautious. I'm going to be quite cautious, in fact, around here, just to make sure that I don't spin the car. I mean, to be fair, it is still going relatively quickly through these turns. I daren't take my eyes off the road to look at what I am doing, but still, the concentration, the level of concentration required to complete a lap, just survive a lap, is ridiculously high compared to just about everything else I have driven. And what I've tended to find myself doing is learning tracks, learning cars in a different way. The normal way that everyone learns, well, the games in general, but the normal way people learn racing games is you tend to push the limits massively. You tend to go well over the limits, have a crash, and then you try again, you tune it back a little bit, and then you've perhaps only gone a little bit over the limit, have a crash, tune it back again until you find where that limit is. But that is very difficult to do in this game. You've really got to learn it in almost in a more realistic way. You've got to sort of slowly build up to finding that limit, finding where that limit is, rather than stepping over it straight away. That just doesn't really help you with learning so much on here. It is much better to gradually build up. And I can't say I've had that almost necessity so much in racing games. We're all guilty of doing it. So many people will learn a racing game in that manner. But in this, you're better off gradually building up as you would with an actual race car and an actual circuit. Oh, we're on the long straight now. We're on the long straight. There are just a few more corners to go, and I might be able to... No, don't say anything yet. I'm not going to jinx anything just yet. We've got to make these next few corners. You will notice I'm buzzing in the limiter with this car. The standard setup for this at this track is running quite a lot of downforce, which I want for the corners. It's pretty much aero limited at 170. I put longer gears on it, didn't really go any faster. So, yeah, we have got shorter gear ratios. It's buzzing the limiter at 170, but it doesn't really go that much faster in the other guys. Here we go, around the final corner we go. I'm being very tentative on the throttle. Now we can unleash the power. 6:37.0. I'll take that as a lap time, to be honest. Oh, we made it. And now we sleep, I think, for a while. Yeah, the sense of accomplishment for completing that lap is pretty damn high. It's a challenging game if you want it to be, and I very much enjoy that about it. Takes absolutely no prisoners with a car like this. Yeah, I am driving one of the most difficult vehicles you could, let's face it. It will take absolutely no prisoners, but when you get it right, it is incredible. I mean, that lap I could probably, without too much trouble, I say without too much trouble, I could probably get it under 6:30, but without too much trouble would be the interesting part of that sentence, because pushing it more and more, and of course different setups and whatnot, but pushing it more and more is when you are asking for issues. We did it. We made the laps, and I have just about survived without managing to talk. I did actually have serious sort of thoughts about having to try and talk while driving. Normally I'm okay. Most games, you know, Forza, I can do autocross and talk, and, you know, GTA, whatever it might be. This, probably the toughest to talk or to commentate while driving. That is the level of concentration required to keep the car on the road, as it should be, really. That's the whole point. Yeah, it is tough. I think the whole point of this, it is very, very difficult to get everything right, but let's face it, with a car like this, probably should be. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.